Forgot to add my introduction, but I'm James Dickens. I am a geoscience major, and I am a incoming junior. All right, so sorry. Generally, I liked the film. I thought at times it was a little bit over dramatic. Just a bunch of cutaways and intense music, and I think it could have gone a little more in depth. That's what I'm trying to say. I wish it had gone more in depth into kind of the political, economic consequences of social media, of TikTok, of the relationship between ByteDance and Facebook, instead of focusing so much on individual content creators. The article I thought was really informative. Very kind of classic op-ed piece from a news organization. It was kind of cut and dry, highlighting some stories of personal experiences in working for, in this case, Google, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't know about the facial recognition bias in white versus black people. Was really eye-opening. I think the most relevant, especially to that last part, the bias, the most relevant parts of the film and the article were the fact that the people in power who own this technology, who are in charge of its distribution to the public, are going to be the ones who decide how it's looked back on in 10 years, or 20 years, or 100 years. Just like learning about how, in history, it's not as objective as it might seem. Watching those videos about the ways that historical facts can morph over time or be omitted from history, I think AI is going to be one of those things that those in charge of it have so much power, they're the ones that are going to control the narrative. So that gets into a lot of the fears about the fact that China owns ByteDance, TikTok, and I think a lot of those fears themselves come from misinformation and propaganda throughout the U.S., whether that's just anti-communist or recently blatantly anti-Chinese propaganda. I don't know if you remember Senator Tom Cotton's tirade on that poor TikTok employee, asking him if he'd been a member of the Communist Party of China. But I think that kind of misinformation has the possibility to only get worse when we're looking at how good deepfakes might get, false information attacking political opponents. And I think in the U.S. people are scared of the fact that it's China who's currently controlling this narrative. So we'll see how China decides to describe this period in history, but I think it's going to involve, from both Chinese and American data companies, a lot of omission of the harms that social media is doing to our lives, the harms to not only tech workers, like in the article they're talking about moderators in Africa being forced to see terrible videos, but harms to individual users, because they're monopolizing every second of our lives. We're trying to. Like they said in the film, data is the new oil. What was it? China is the new Saudi Arabia? Something like that. They're selling our data. They're going to do as much as possible to get our data. And you have this device that is, it's like a drug. Whether it's, constantly mindless content, or whether you're seeking external validation, or, your friends are posting these pictures on vacation. We've talked about this for years. It is detrimental to have, this unlimited access to social media, because it's easy. It's easy to go on your phone when you're tired, you don't want to do anything else. It's hard to go outside and do your hobbies and make friends. And I really think that's not going to get much better. And a scary part that was touched on in the film and the article were discrimination. In the film, it was more from the lens of how is an algorithm sorting content so that you're only seeing viewpoints and perspectives similar to yours, which creates echo chambers. You have people sharing the same ideas over and over again. They get more galvanized and antagonistic of other groups. Or you have, from the article's perspective, the AI tools themselves being designed with inherent bias because their designers have that bias. Their designers are just white men, and they, just by being white men, accidentally create facial recognition technology with an insanely high error rate for black faces, which is insane. Sorry, dry throat. I kind of agree with some of the kids in the film when they were saying that they didn't really care whether China has their data because the U.S. already has most of their data. We've already been on the internet for most of our lives. I think we're a little bit less susceptible to that kind of propaganda and the fear-mongering. I do think that there needs to be some regulation. Like I was saying earlier, excessive social media use has a really, really negative impact on your mental health. Almost everyone I know has experienced this. We came up with the word doom scrolling to describe just mindlessly scrolling on your phone. It is like a drug. And, I mean, the reason we regulate drugs is because they're bad for you. And they ruin your life. And the government doesn't want you doing drugs. Because they think it harms society. And I think social media can harm society just as much as cocaine or heroin can, or an individual life. It really is addictive, and zero regulation on the ways that technology has access to my life and my friends' lives that's what's scary to me. That's really what's scary to me. I especially wish they wouldn't include so much inherent bias. Because that's what's actually going to hurt individual people. Actually, being discriminated against by a machine is insane. But on the bright side, this has all kind of led to, and this is, makes me feel a little bit pride, kind of the organization of people who previously might have felt like they didn't have a voice. TikTok getting so popular has allowed, those young political activists that we learned about in the film, get a voice to like an entire country or the entire world, getting on news stations because of videos they posted. We're highlighting how China would, shadow ban their content if they talked about, or just ban their content if they talked about, like the Uyghur genocide. I wish we'd gone a little bit deeper into the history or current ways that disadvantaged groups self-organize, looking at communities or individual people who have gone out and created a movement from nothing with no political background. I think that kind of stuff is what makes the world feel a little bit less hopeless. But I think a little more hope can inspire people to connect with those around them. Like the recent TikTok ban, which inspired people to download RedNote and connect with, Chinese people online and learn that both their governments do propaganda against each other. Communication is what I like most about this class, because for me, I like to talk a lot, as you can probably tell, and I like to do a lot of research. I want to make sure I understand something, but having to condense it down into 400 words, it takes a lot of work to summarize like that, to communicate your ideas in a way that makes sense to other people, and then hearing how other people communicate information. The more that happens, the more, that is how you connect different places, is communication. That's what I was grateful for most for out of this class. Learning how to communicate information, or getting better at it, and I hope I'll continue to get better at it. So, thanks for everything, Professor Gerlach, and wishing you a good rest of your summer.